This podcast is brought to you by iPlayHockey.ca. iPlay is the leading hockey insurance provider to coaches, camp instructors, spring and summer hockey leagues, and tournaments across Canada. If you need insurance for hockey, iPlay has you covered. iPlay also provides hockey players and coaches with a wide range of free tools, drills, and skills in their drill vault to enhance on-ice performance, and they provide crucial off-ice knowledge as well. So if you need insurance for a hockey team, league, or camp, or if you just want to teach your kids some new drills, head on over to iPlayHockey.ca and check out their new website.
How are we doing, everybody? Welcome to episode 277 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody Abrams, Melbourne, back with you. Fellas, great to see you both in person in Toronto over the weekend. That was a great time. Chad, again, congrats to you and Paige. And great to get on here, guys, and chat about some playoff matchups, Eastern Conference in particular. The matchups are all set. Still have to figure out all of the West matchups. Well, not all of them, but most of them. But the East is set. Playoffs begin this weekend. Can't wait. Let's waste no time here. Let's get right into it with the first matchup that we are going to talk about, featuring, of course, the Buffalo Sabres, first in the Atlantic Division, ending a 14-year playoff drought. They've got home ice in the playoffs to start, and they will be taking on the Boston Bruins in round one. A nice turnaround for them this season after selling off completely at last year's deadline. Quick little retool and turnaround, 100 points, first wild card spot. Buffalo, Boston. We are starting off with this one, boys. Case?
This is the most Sabres fan thing ever to put this series first in this episode instead of the Eastern Conference winning team series. But yeah, we'll roll with it, and we'll get into Buffalo and Boston. Going to be an interesting series. I actually mean it when I say that. And I think all of these series will be pretty good in the East. Mm-hmm. I think that it's going to be a common theme in both the East and the West that we're talking about experience in these predictions. And this is kind of a big factor in this one when I was looking into this, Buffalo versus Boston, because really when you look at Buffalo, you can't really rely on the stats heading into these predictions because there was two different teams playing factors into the year-end stats for Buffalo. And if you look at the first half team, they shouldn't even be here. And the second half team is absolute world burners. So a lot of these other series, I got into statistics and kind of made up some decisions that way. Buffalo and Boston, I'm kind of just going off vibes here. And I mean, the vibes heading into this are obviously in favor of Buffalo, who was just on fire and continued strong right to the end. Boston has some guys who can change the series, and everyone's saying that because everyone knows it. Swayman can be electric in net. Pasta, McAvoy, all of these guys can change a series. But I think that at the end of this series, depth will reign supreme, and in particular, the defensive depth of the Buffalo Sabres, who I think will outmaneuver those X factors in Boston. Two questions I have for this series, and then I'm done on it already. One, is Owen Power a lion or a kitty? I think we find out in this series.
True.
And second, will face-offs and center depth play a factor? Face-offs were huge and really impactful in the Olympics, and Buffalo is by far the worst in the league on the dot, whereas Boston is the fourth best. All that being said, running on vibes here, running on depth, I am taking Buffalo in 7 in this series. And I will predict that I have to block or mute Harper.
Oh, God. I don't want to deal with the fallout if Buffalo wins this series. Case, going to your face-off point, yes, that's something you typically see with experienced teams versus inexperienced teams, right? It's the experienced ones are really good down the middle. The inexperienced ones are not. And that, like you mentioned, is going to play a huge factor in this series, just the experience versus lack thereof. However, when it comes to the experience of the Boston Bruins in this case, we have to remember that they are not the same Boston Bruins team that they were a few years ago with all of their, main horses. Pastrnak is really the only guy left from that group who's still around. Marchand is gone. Patrice Bergeron has retired. So it's not really the same group. So yes, I think they are more experienced, and I do think Boston has more game breakers, talking about Pastrnak in particular and Jeremy Swayman. But it's going to come down to experience, I think, in this one. All of that being said, Case, I'm siding with you here. I also picked the Buffalo Sabres in 7 games, but I did get into the numbers a little bit, so I'll share that with you. Just looking at these two teams from a top level, Buffalo is just such a fun team. And I know there's a difference between the start of the year and the end of the year, but especially in the second half of the season, they've just been such a fun team. And what I mean by that is how Money Puck categorizes fun teams. And those are teams who generate a ton of chances, but also give up a decent amount of chances too. And that's the Buffalo Sabres in a nutshell. They're high event hockey. They're, in terms of expected goals for, they're 15th. So they're in the top half of the league, 20th in expected goals against. So they're, towards the bottom half there. They did score the most goals for above expected in the league this year. So that's something I'll be watching in the playoffs. That typically tells you that a team was either lucky or has really good finishers. And there's no time like the playoffs to figure out which one it is. Were they a lucky team in the regular season by scoring above what they were expected, or did they just have some great finishers like a Tage Thompson, right? Like that's a guy who can put the puck in the net. And for Boston, if Buffalo's the fun team in Money Puck's categories, Boston is a bad team, honestly, in Money Puck's categories. And, they're 22nd in expected goals for, 29th in expected goals against, also scored well above what they were expected to do this season. Second in the NHL behind only the Sabres. They scored 20 more goals than they were expected to. The biggest difference, I think, between these two teams, well, I think there are two main differences. Number one is the X factor, David Pastrnak. He has more points than anybody in this series and is consistently a top 5, top 10 point scorer in the league. He's got 100 points this year. He could easily take over this series and win a few games single-handedly. And another guy who can win games single-handedly in this series is Jeremy Swayman, who, by the way, I know I wasn't on our Vezina episode last week talking about goalies, but man, I think Swayman has not been talked about enough for a Vezina caliber season. I think he could really, truly do some damage in this series. However, Case, I do agree with you. I think depth will likely win out over experience here. And I've got Buffalo in 7 games. I'm sure, Harper, that's music to your ears. We're both picking the Sabres.
It absolutely is, boys. I appreciate it. First of all, just have to say how excited I am, and how excited I am for the fact that not only the Sabres are back in the playoffs for the first time since 2011, they won the division, they get to start at home. I think that is such a huge advantage to be able to start at home. I've also got the Sabres winning in 7 games. I thought about that in my head before you guys both picked that as well, which, yes, is absolutely music to my ears. The center depth is going to be interesting when looking at the Sabres. Yes, they've struggled in the face-off dot. That's a big reason why they brought in a guy like Sam Carrick. If he is ready to go for this first-round series, which is still up in the air right now with his injury, he could potentially be an X factor as a guy who can take big draws late in games and just match up really well against a really good fourth line for the Boston Bruins that consists of Kastelik, Jeannot, and Sean Kuraly. Just a good bottom 6 overall. I mean, it's the Boston Bruins, of course. They have a good bottom 6. Jeremy Swayman, I'm with you, Chad. He could be a huge X factor here. Had a nightmare of a year last year. This year, totally turned it around. He's been excellent. David Pastrnak, 100 points yet again. And Charlie McAvoy, we talked about him last week. Well, I did during my solo episode there, but
you're not so solo episode.
Yes, kind of. So 95% solo because our good pal Chunk hopped on for a bit. But McAvoy is a guy that has been a warrior this year and has not gotten enough love for the Norris. Speaking of the Norris, Rasmus Dahlin is right there, and I can't wait to see playoff Rasmus Dahlin. It's going to be awesome. Tage Thompson, same thing. The two guys that have been there for so long leading the way. And there is some experience there. Bo Byram has won a Stanley Cup. He knows what to expect. Alex Tuck has played in a Stanley Cup final. They've got really good veteran experience from guys like Jason Zucker. Zucker has had yet again a terrific year with this team. Luke Shen, who they brought in for that depth on the blue line case, which I do think is advantage Sabres, has a pair of Stanley Cups. So really good matchup. And lastly, I have to shout out the goaltending of the Buffalo Sabres. Who would have thought that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, with everything that he's gone through, would have the season that he has this year and would be the game one starter in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs? If we were talking a month or two ago, a couple of months ago, I would have thought for sure it would have been Alex Lyon. But Lyon is banged up right now. He also hasn't played that well down the stretch here. Luukkonen has been unbelievable. Looks like he'll get the start game one against Jeremy Swayman. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be a bloodbath all the way. Sabres in 7. Let's go.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. And I'm glad you brought up the Sabres goaltending too, because that's something I didn't get to. But yeah, I mean, both guys have been good for different parts of the season. And you're right, UPL's been the guy as of late. But Alex Lyon, you know, in the counting stats, goals saved above expected over the course of the season, like he's right up there. And
he's
so
been
is
unbelievable.
UPL.
Yeah,
So,
saved the Florida Panthers season a couple of years ago, and what a great addition he's been for us. He's struggled as of late. He's been a little banged up, but it's Luukkonen's net right now. And given all that he's been through, Chad, we've talked about this. False started so many times. The third goalie at one point a couple of years ago, because they just had to get Devin Levi out of Northeastern into the starter's net right away. He's been false started so many times, so I'm really happy for Luukkonen here, and I think he's going to be fired up to play starting in game one at home against the Bruins.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, I think offense probably goes to the Sabres. Defense probably leans Sabres. Goaltending, I think I still lean Bruins.
That's fair.
Experience and game breakers, also Bruins. But yeah, given all that, all the numbers this season, how they've looked in the second half, I mean, Buffalo is a legit shot here. And yeah, like we talked about, dealing with the fallout, dealing with you after the fact. If they win, it's going to be a nightmare, but it's going to be exciting.
Don't block me or mute me, boys. All right? Just
too late.
All right, let's move on to our next series here. So, guys, we obviously had to start with that one, all right? I'm sorry, but we had to start with that one. So we'll go Atlantic to Metro. So we'll go to the next Atlantic series here, Tampa Bay and Montreal. The Lightning, number 2 in the Atlantic, 106 points. Montreal, third, same amount of points at 106. Guys, I was just at Tampa Bay, Montreal last week at the Bell Center. Got to see Cole Caulfield score his 50th goal. Became the 6th Montreal Canadiens player ever to do it. What an atmosphere. What a hockey game. Was talking to a bunch of Habs fans afterwards in our group and outside of that group, and they thought it was the game of the year. This is going to be an awesome series. I mean, we're looking forward to all these series, but this one is going to be something else, I think, just because I was at that game last week in Montreal. So, Bolts, Habs, boys, that's where we go next here. BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it more convenient to get you started. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy more comfortable and convenient. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Your next chapter starts today. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp online therapy at betterhelp.com/boysinthebooth in paid partnership with BetterHelp.
Yeah, I'm glad that you went here after we've talked so heavily about experience, because this is probably the biggest balance deficit of experience in the whole, well, in the East at least. Tampa Bay has just a team full of guys who have been there, done that in the past, mixed with kind of the guys they turned into gems, as well as some wily vets. And I'm not just saying playoff experience, I'm saying playoff experience on this team. They have 1,058 games played for Tampa Bay in the playoffs on this team. That's just, it's something you can't overlook. And when I did start getting into the numbers for this matchup, I looked at Tampa on Money Puck and started kind of trying to find any sort of weakness that I could pry into. And it does not bode well for anyone in the playoffs, but definitely for Montreal, the fact that the only weakness, and I like quote unquote weaknesses I could find for Tampa heading into the series, were power play and goals saved above expected. You're telling me that Vasilevsky's not going to flip those numbers over on their head in big games? You're telling me that the Tampa Bay Lightning aren't going to have a well-oiled power play machine in the postseason? Like, if those are their big glaring weaknesses, and I mean, I joke when I say that because they're not even that bad of numbers in the first place. That's going to be a tough look for Montreal. And this isn't me ripping on Montreal, and I like what they have going. I think that they finally have some studs up front. Their D-core has some real puck movers, and they found their goalies. Two young guys who, I mean, I hope they can keep it together in the playoffs. And I'm picking Montreal against most of the teams in the West, and Philly, Boston, Pittsburgh, for that matter. This is a tough matchup, though. And I am inevitably going to take Tampa Bay in this series, and I am going to take them in 7. I initially put 6 down, but Harp, like you mentioned, the Bell Center is a loony bin.
Yeah.
And I think it would be so hard to take that series in the Bell Center. So I went with 7.
Love it.
I didn't think about that, taking the series in the Bell Center in 6 games, but that's what I went with. I went with Tampa Bay in 6 Ks for a lot of the same reasons that you brought up. I just feel when you look at all of these categories, offense, defense, goaltending, experience, and game breakers, it all leans Tampa Bay for me, even though I agree with you. Like, I'm taking Montreal against, a handful of teams, like certainly Philly, certainly Pittsburgh. You could talk me into a few others. So I think Montreal's a really good team. It shows in the standings this year. They're good enough to be 3rd in the Atlantic, but they could have won it, and they wouldn't have shocked anyone if they did. So, yeah, unfortunately for Montreal, like, they just ran into a really good team here. Yeah. And the numbers prove that too. Like, when you look into it, like, Montreal, some really good underlying numbers, except for maybe expected goals against. They give up a lot more than some other good teams. Like, they were 26th in that category in expected goals against per 60. But Tampa is just so good in every category. Like, 3rd in expected goals for, 9th in expected goals against. In case you were talking about that goal saved above expected number, well, I'll tell you where it comes from. Jonas Johansson, the backup goalie, who's just been awful all year and awful.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm probably going to get flamed for the fact that, like, Vasi's in a Vezina conversation here, but it's
Vasi could very well win it.
It's the team goals save above expected. Like, that's what I mean. That's how hard it was to find a weakness for these guys. You had to look at team goals saved above expected.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, Jonas Johansson, if he's playing in the playoffs, well, they've already lost that game anyways. So it's going to be Vasi every single game. They're going to ride him until the wheels fall off, because he's done it a couple times before. He's back into, peak form this season. He could very well win the Vezina Trophy. So, yeah, like, Tampa Bay, to me, just doesn't have a weakness. They generate a ton of chances, high danger chances. They were 6th in the NHL, fewest or 8th fewest high danger shots against as well. So they're defending too. Like, even though Vasi has been, he's had a really great season and what have you, like, he hasn't been tested as much as many other goalies in the league because Tampa just doesn't give up a ton of high danger shots. And then, of course, like, there's the smoking gun, right? There's Nikita Kucherov, who has 130 points this season, who, if we're talking about power play potentially being a weakness, well, what do you think Nikita Kucherov's going to do in the playoffs on the power play? Like, he might be the best power play performer on planet Earth, right? And he's just getting started here. He's just warming up, getting into his favorite time of year, which is the playoffs. So, yeah, like, unfortunately for Montreal, I love a lot about their team, but this matchup, man, like, the numbers just, I can't be talked into Montreal winning this one. This is my most certain series, and it's Tampa in 6. That's what I've got.
Well, the Montreal Canadiens are pretty remarkable. I must say, like, to be even younger than they were last season and to be much better than they were last season with such a young team is pretty incredible. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are also incredible with all that experience that you mentioned, Case. So I have the Canadiens taking a step compared to last year where they lost to the Washington Capitals in round 1 in 5 games. I think they take a step here, a small one, but don't get past the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it's going to be in 7 really good competitive playoff games between these two teams. And again, after seeing these two go at it late in the regular season last week at the Bell Center, I can't wait, but I got to give the edge to Tampa. They are just such a powerhouse with all that experience. I mean, a guy that kind of gets overshadowed by all the star power on this team is a guy like Jake Gensel. I mean, you could go down the list all day long. There are so many guys, and if they get a healthy Victor Hedman back, I mean, that is huge as well. And, the other thing that we kind of mentioned over the weekend when we were all together in Toronto and with our good pal Nate Gagne, who's a big Bolts fan, don't underestimate the depth of this team. Like, you might have to pull up your hockey DB and look up who some of these guys are, but they are able to bring up whoever, and they come in, they're like, this is your role, this is how you have to do things, and they just fit right in. Tampa just has a perfect culture. They're coached so well, whether it's Dastu, Dominic James, Peltier, who comes up, Gonzalez, whoever it is, they're able to just fit into the mold that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that would be the last point I would make too, is don't underestimate the depth of this team on top of all the star power and the experience that they have.
It's just a culture thing, right? Like, that's what they do.
100%. Like, yeah, Victor Hedman goes down. Most teams are, expecting a ton of losses. Team's going to suffer setbacks. Oh, wait, no, Darren Radish is now a Norris Trophy candidate. Yeah, right. So never mind. Yeah, it's just next man up at all times in Tampa Bay. And they, not only do they have such depth that, you think Tampa Bay forwards and like the 5th guy I get to is Jake Gensel, but it's the fact that someone like that is going to step up in this series and step up in all the series for the playoffs for Tampa as they go on a deep run here. Like, Yanni Gourde is suddenly going to be Braden Point 2.0 all out of nowhere. It's just never ending.
Yeah, it's a team that just doesn't go away. Like, we thought they were going to take a step back, and then they're just here. They get Corey Perry back, they get Yanni Gourde back, and it's like, okay, here we go. Here's round 3. Like, they're going at it again. So,
yeah, absolutely. All right, fellas, 2 series left here on the East side for round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And now we go to the number 1 team in the Metro, the Carolina Hurricanes, 113 points, just an incredible season for them against the Ottawa Senators. 2nd wild card, making the playoffs for a 2nd straight season after ending a 7-year drought last season and facing the Toronto Maple Leafs in round one. Carolina and Ottawa, fellas, is who we have next.
This podcast is sponsored by SeatGeek, the absolute best ticket app out there. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals to tickets at your favorite sporting event. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know whether you're getting a good or a bad deal. Last time I got tickets to see the Devils play, I first saw red tickets. I waited it out, monitored the price in-app, and once I saw green, I pulled the trigger. SeatGeek makes it that easy. And here's the best part. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Click the link in our description to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek. Yeah, this is another rough one for the Sens. Like, just pushing so hard to get into a playoff spot, and then you have to face a team like Carolina. But these two teams have a lot more similar strengths and weaknesses than you'd think when you look into them. Two teams that really love to control the game. The Sens were one of the best play driving teams in the league, ranked 5th in offensive play driving, 2nd in defensive. Just terrible finishing at 26, and their goaltending was rough all year. But they were 3rd in expected goals percentage, which is only behind Colorado and Carolina, which is exactly how Carolina loves to play the game. We all know that they outshoot their opponents like 45-16 every night. It's just the way they play, they drive it. So at the end of the day, this series is really going to come down to special teams and goaltending. Don't love the matchup for Ottawa in that aspect, because Carolina ranks 4th in power play percentage, Ottawa 8th, but then Carolina's PK was 11th and Ottawa's was 29th, which is up over their midseason rank. So started turning things around there, but it's still a glaring weakness on this team. The only silver lining in this special teams matchup is that Ottawa drew the 4th most penalties in the league, and you can expect that to be the goal of guys like Brady, Cousins, and Stu, all guys that kind of either get under your skin, or one of those guys, I won't tell you which one, likes to dive. Oh, sorry. There's 2 in there. Never mind. There's 2 divers, 2 guys who like to get under your skin. The other question, is definitely goaltending. Are we going to get April Ullmark, or are we going to get first half of the season Ullmark? He did really turn things around. His save percentage in April was .926 versus, March .888, or his full season was around 8.9 or 8.89. So definitely turned things around late in the game. He's on a roll, and at least Ottawa has that decision made. Who's playing in net? We know who it's going to be. Whereas Carolina's doing that feel it out thing, perhaps, that we all hate. I do believe in Bussy, but let's see if that experience plays a factor, or if they go back and forth. Does that have an effect? Are they going to do 1-1-1-1, which we've seen work wonders and also destroy teams in the playoffs? So I am, in fact, rooting for the Senators in this one, but I will take the Canes in 7.
Wow, Case. I think that this was a tough one for you, and it was a really tough one for me. I landed on the same decision, Canes in 7, and I like how you
parody in the booth.
Boys in the booth. Yeah. Yeah. We should have, I should be an antagonist here and just say, no, I hate that pick, but it's what I believe too. So I have to go with it. And I'm glad you pointed out the similarities between these two teams, because that's something I wanted to talk about. And, it's not until you really dive into the numbers that those similarities, kind of rear their heads. But yeah, let's start with the goaltending. We have 2 goalies here, or I guess 2 goalies on Carolina and 1 on Ottawa, who all have kind of similar stories and tales of 2 seasons. Like, for example, Ullmark right now, 7th worst goal saved above expected in the league, right? With a minus 12.8. But over his last 20 games, he's a plus 5.3 goal saved above expected.
Yeah.
So he's really come on in the past 20 games or so. And then, you know, you look at the other side and it's Brennan Bussey, who started the season out really good, you know, but right now he ranks 32nd in goals saved above expected at a plus 3. And but then over his last 10 games played, he's a minus 6.1, and that ranks him 84th in the league. So like, tale of two seasons for him. And Freddie Anderson is always kind of up and down, as we know. I think Carolina should probably go with Freddie. I think that's what I would do. But then again, I've seen playoff Freddie, and you know, like, it's not always good. So I'm not exactly sure. All I know for sure is that these two teams are very similar in terms of their goaltending, because I don't trust either. I truly don't. But then when it comes to offense and defense case, like, the similarities keep going. Like, for example, Carolina was second in expected goals for, Ottawa was 7th, right? And Carolina was 5th in expected goals against this season. Ottawa was 1st. So Ottawa gave up the fewest expected goals against per 60 in the league this year. Like, they're controlling the play and not giving up high danger chances. And let's talk about high danger chances. Carolina actually has the first number 1 in high danger chances for, right? So they're generating a ton. And Ottawa 9th in high danger chances for. So again, like, similarities. In terms of high danger shots against, Carolina is 10th, Ottawa is 1st. Fewest high danger shots against in the entire league, Ottawa was. So that's why everyone talks about the Ottawa Senators. Like, when they get good goaltending, they can win games because they don't give up that many high danger chances, right? So like, they're really defending well. So the similarities between these two teams are crazy. I think offense, you probably lean Carolina slightly, just given their depth, even though Ottawa has, you know, some game breakers, and I would give them the edge in game breakers. But defense, I think Ottawa gets the edge slightly. Goaltending, as I mentioned, both are bad. I don't think either has the edge. I think they're both total wild cards. So really, for me, all this series came down to was the experience. And Carolina's a team who's been there every single year. It seems like they're in the conference finals every single year. It's a lot of the same guys in this group. It's the same coach. It's the same GM and management group who put together this team, who play the same way. So yeah, for me, I had to lean on the experience, and I think Carolina will take it in 7 games, but this was a really, really tough one for me.
Mom, I want Carolina. We have Carolina at home, Ottawa Senators.
Exactly. That's perfectly put.
That is really well put. Yeah, a lot of similarities between these two teams. And best way I would describe the goaltending on either side is kind of erratic. Like, you don't know what you're going to get, really. There's been good stretches. There have been some not so good stretches. There have been some terrible stretches. What kind of goaltending are we going to see on either side? But I have to give the Hurricanes the edge here. They're the better team. They don't have those game breakers like like a Tim Stützle that maybe Ottawa has. I think Ottawa has the edge scoring wise, but Carolina, we know how they play. We know the Rod Brind'Amour style. They forecheck hard. They dump the puck in. They grind you below the goal line, and they just suffocate you defensively. They do that so well. And I give the Senators a lot of credit. There's been a lot of noise and drama around this team all year. I give them a lot of credit for getting into the playoffs here, having a really good second half to get in and to do it for a second year in a row. But I have to give the edge to the Hurricanes because of the way they play. It's suffocating hockey. And so I've got the Hurricanes in 6 games.
Yeah, I think you guys you're right about the game breakers thing. I do think maybe you're not giving enough credit to Sebastian Aho and how much of a game breaker he can be. Yep. And that's the thing about Carolina, is that maybe they don't have a Tim Stützle or a Brady Tkachuk, who is, a game changer at times and in different ways. But I think in the playoffs, everyone elevates their game a little bit more in Carolina. Guys like Martinook are playing a lineup. Jackson Blake was phenomenal in the playoffs last year, really impactful. Aho becomes a bit of a game breaker in the playoffs. So when everyone takes, another gear, another step in the playoffs, this team just gets so much better. And yeah, it's I think going to be a tougher series than people will expect, and probably the one that I'm going to tune into the most.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching this series. In case when it comes to Carolina's offense too, like that, I mean, this is something we should mention. Like there's kind of a guy on each line, like just the way that their offense works, like whether it's a Stankoven, whether it's a Nick Ehlers, who we really haven't talked about. Not that he's necessarily a game breaker, but he's just another guy who fits into that system, who can contribute, or no matter who it is, like they kind of spread out the lines and are able to generate offense in that way. And yeah, like I think it's going to be a really tight series because, again, like both of these teams, they generate a ton and don't give up a ton. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Two teams that are very similar going against each other. Like, are we going to see high scoring games where there's a ton of shots, or low scoring games because there's not a ton of shots, because both teams defend really well, but both teams also, put a lot of pucks on net. So I don't know. It'll be very interesting. But I will say, with Ottawa, yeah, I mean, well, goalies, right? Like neither are very good. I will say with Ottawa though, like I think there's only two teams in the Eastern playoffs right now that I would pick to beat Ottawa, and I think it's Tampa Bay and Carolina.
Yeah,
am I way off with that? Like,
I could be convinced for sure. You notice I didn't say Ottawa when I said I'm taking Montreal over everyone or most teams in the West, Pittsburgh, Boston, and Philly, because I don't know who would win that series. I think Ottawa might. So yeah, it'd be close for sure. I do want to say one more thing about the goaltending before we kind of wrap up here, and that's just that I think Ullmark does have that trait in him that the more shots he sees in a game, the better he plays.
True.
And he kind of elevates his game when he's getting peppered, and maybe that's going to be a positive here because Carolina's going to put up 40 plus shots a game. So maybe that will get him in a little bit more, get him more engaged, and he'll play better. I saw that firsthand January 31st when he stood on his head in his return against the Devils. They just peppered him with shots and chances, and he was all over the place and just engaged. Whereas when you look at his games where he's received or had 25 or less shots against, his save percentage is around that 8-8 in every one of those games. And it's pretty interestingly skewed when you look at it that way. I know that, of course, the more shots you see, the more likely you're going to have a high save percentage. But in games that he saw 13 to 21 shots, his save percentage was 85%.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
30 or 31 or more, it was more like 90.71%. We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all of the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users. And when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So, if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through our link in the description below. signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use our link and support the boys. So, one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And you guys know I listen to Steve Valiquette often, right? He's often on the Real Kipper and Bourne show, and he was former goaltender, played behind Hank Lundqvist for a number of seasons as the backup, and learned a lot from him. Played a handful, of seasons in the NHL, and now he's the CEO of Clearsight Analytics, and he talks about that some of these analytics forward teams are actually telling their players not to throw low danger shots on net for that very reason, right? Because you warm the goalie up and the data will prove that. And it has over years. But the thing with Carolina, even though, as I was mentioning, they put a ton of shots on net, like for example, their second most shots for in the NHL this year, they're also first in high danger shots for too. So that's, Carolina is the outlier where they don't only get a ton of medium and low danger shots, but they also get a ton of high danger shots on net too. So I would agree with the theory if they were playing a team like, I'd have to look at the numbers. Maybe a Colorado's a team who puts a lot of low danger shots on net. I'm not sure. But if they're playing a team like that where, Allmark's going to be able to see some easy ones and kind of get into the rhythm. But Carolina, man, they're a team that they just get to the house and put difficult shots on net all the time. So it'll be up to Ottawa's offense, who, again, I mentioned before, number one in fewest high danger shots against. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in front of Allmark in the house, in Ottawa's zone, the best defense core at preventing high danger shots versus the best offensive core at generating high danger shots. It's going to be fascinating. I really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'd like to see the stats on high danger chances created on the rush versus from behind the net or under the goal line, because I imagine that a lot of Carolina's high danger chances come from passes coming out of the corners where, it's more than likely going to be a high danger chance because it means they're in the house, like you say.
Yeah.
Going to be a fascinating series, a tight series for sure. That's Carolina, Ottawa, guys. And we move on to our final round one Eastern Conference playoff series here. And this is going to be a fun one. It is the Battle of Pennsylvania, guys, between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. Metro 2 and 3, 98 points each. And I've got some good stuff on these two teams, guys, heading into this series. So for Pittsburgh, what a season. First berth since 21-22. Philly back in the playoffs for the first time since 1920. First series against each other since 2018. Let's get into Penguins Flyers.
I thought you said it was the first time they're in the playoffs since 1920, and I was like, oh, I don't think that's right. But 2019, 2020, I got you. My brain was lagging on that one, but yeah, we know this is a series of rivals, and it's going to be fun to watch for sure. I know that we say defense wins championships, we say it all the time. But I think in today's NHL, you need at least one more thing to add into that mix, and Philly does not have it. One of the best defensive teams in the league, thanks to their new coach, but they do not score goals at a high level. They do not have game-changing goaltending, and their special teams are horrible. So in a series that, as we mentioned, a rivalry series, it's going to be chippy. I think special teams are going to play a big factor. Pittsburgh ranks 7th and 7th. Philly has the worst power play in the league and the 22nd penalty kill. That's just not a recipe for success in the playoffs. I think if this kind of stays the course and they get league average goaltending out of Stuart Skinner, then the Penguins vet core here, which there's tons of experience littered throughout this team, they should get them over, and I'm taking the Penguins in 6 games.
Nice case. And I'm just, Swear I deal with this every episode. People listening have no idea, but I'm just so blurry right now. Anyway, I will. Hold on, give it 1 sec.
No, you're not welling up in the eyes thinking about Sidney Crosby winning another playoff series. It's just Chad's situation here.
What? The stupid autofocus. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Holy, why
All
doesn't it
right.
happen to you guys? Okay. Yeah, Case, I'm with you. I think Philly definitely has the better defense in this series. And I think, the previous series we were talking about all the similarities between Carolina and Ottawa. I think it's the total opposite in this series. I think these two teams are polar opposites in terms of what they're good at, what they're bad at. I think the only similarity might be goaltending, whereas both goalies are, okay, not game breakers. You know what? Vladar's been pretty good this year, but so is Skinner at points, which is something I never thought I'd be saying in the year of 2026, but he's been good since the trade. But yeah, Pittsburgh, very fun team. Like, they generate a ton of offense, but again, by fun, what does that mean? That means that they also give up a ton the other way. So another team too, I mentioned Buffalo was one of them, and Boston was another. They scored a hell of a lot more than expected this year. Pittsburgh was number 3 in that category at plus 18. So you can talk about whether that was lucky or whether that they have good finishers. I guess we'll find out in these playoffs. They're also running into a good defensive team, so we'll see how that shakes out there. But Philly, like on the other side of things, like you mentioned, Case, they don't score. They're 25th in expected goals for per 60. They don't generate a ton. But defensively, they're 3rd in expected goals against. And like I mentioned, Vladar having a decent season, 11th in goals saved above expected. So, yeah, these two teams could not be further from each other in terms of play style. So that'll be a bit of an interesting matchup to see how that shakes out. I think offense obviously goes to Pittsburgh. Defense obviously goes to Philly. Goaltending, I think it goes to Philly slightly. Experience is an interesting one. I think it has to go to Pittsburgh, but similar to the Bruins, like Pitt is not filled with, all of the guys who were there for their cups. Of course, they still have Sid and Malkin and Letang and Erik Karlsson, but aside from that, it's a lot of other guys. So we'll see how those guys play in high pressure situations. And for Philly, obviously, like, they don't have anybody with experience. So we'll see if that's a big factor. And then game breakers, I think it's also Pittsburgh. Zegras has had a good year in Philly. Konechny, good year as well. But it's Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and, Chris Letang, who hasn't had the best season, but Erik Karlsson's had a great year. So I think game breakers has to go to Pittsburgh. All that being said, Case, I think we're going 4 for 4 here, if my memory serves me right. I'm going Pittsburgh in 6. I think it's the safe pick. It's the easy pick. But it's surprising given that Pittsburgh was supposed to be the only team in the NHL coming into this season who was rebuilding and not supposed to be good. So, yeah, Pittsburgh in 6, but it's weird. In Case, it's kind of a shame, actually, if you think about it. The teams like Pittsburgh, Philly, Boston are in over our teams who were supposed to make the playoffs. Like, it's a shame, man, seeing this, to be honest.
Yeah, it is what it is. Our teams will, retool, come back better.
Yeah, well, there's
These
a story
guys are
about
just prolonging their rebuild, and then they're going to be bad for like 10 years, so it's fine.
Yeah, there's a story about the Leafs CEO of MLSE, Keith Pelly, using AI in the trade room at the trade deadline this year. First of all, why is he in the trade room? Second of all, what AI is he using? Thirdly, what the hell? Like, do you guys see that story today? Probably not. But
Yes,
yeah, so
I did. Yes.
Leafs are not in a great spot.
Chris Johnston. Well, okay, Chad, moving forward, you don't have to worry about Pelly being in that room. First of all, he made it clear he doesn't want to be, and you might have a president of hockey ops and general manager. So anyway, There you go. All right. But we're not here to talk about the Leafs and the Devils.
Somehow we are.
I'm sorry.
In the playoffs.
I know. And whose fault is that?
And anyway, Dennis Hildeby is starting tonight, and he was actually drafted as an overager, Case. I don't know if you knew that.
Okay, here we go. All right. Back on the rails here, back to the Penguins and the Flyers. So many great stories, so many guys that you got to be happy for on either side of the ledger here. Anthony Mantha, 30 goal season. He comes in on a 1 year show me kind of deal. And, the guy didn't really have a great reputation around the league at the time that he was signed. Like Elliot Friedman told the story on 32 Thoughts where he talked to a player from another team who was asked about Mantha potentially coming into their mix. And him and the rest of the leadership group on said team, they're like, I don't know. And then Mantha goes out and has this terrific season. On the Philly side, really happy for a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen after over 800 NHL games, finally gets to play in his first ever playoff series. That is pretty cool. Trevor Zegras as well. What a year that he's had. We knew the talent was always there. It just wasn't working out in Anaheim. And he's been a driver this year for the Flyers. And I got to say, too, what a rocking atmosphere in Philly the other night when they clinched in that shootout win over the Hurricanes, talking about how great the Bell Center was last week. Man, I would have liked to be there in Philly for when they officially clinched. I feel like the Flyers are the Montreal Canadiens of last year. Like, just a really good story, a lot of good young pieces that find a way to squeak in. I mean, they squeak in, but with 98 points, for God's sakes. Like, that's just the kind of year it's been. But you guys mentioned it. Like, I look at this lineup, a lot of good players. I mean, Porter Martone has just had an impact right away. He's going to be a really good player there for a long time. Yeah, 9 points in 9 games. Thank you, Chad. But they don't have those game breakers. They don't generate enough offensively, like you both mentioned, and that's the way it goes on a Rick Tocchet kind of team. So I give the edge to Pittsburgh here. I have them in 6 games as well. With the goaltending, they've got Skinner. Shilovs has been really good as well, where with Philly, it's kind of Vladar, and that's it. Ersson has really struggled this year, and so it's going to be on Vladar once again, like it's been all season, and what a year he's had. But under Dan Muse, who may in fact win the Jack Adams this year, this team just plays fast. They believe in themselves. They've got a great mix, and I got to shout out Kyle Dubas. I mean, what a great job he's done with the pro scouting, identifying guys like Mantha and Brazo, Ryan Shea on the back end, Chinnikov as well, the way he's fit in. And again, it's Sidney Crosby back in the playoffs. It's Malkin, it's Letang, it's Carlson. Just so much more experience there, potential Hall of Famers there. And there's just more on the Penguins. And what a season they've had. I don't think even they themselves expected to be this good, 98 points. So going to be a really fun series, but I got to give the edge to Pittsburgh, and I'll pick them in 6 games as well, gents.
Nice. I just don't know where Philly came from. And I kind of
7-3 in their last 10, like just a really good late season run here. Again, it kind of reminds me of Montreal from last season.
I'm glad you said that again, because I reject the comparison, because I just don't think Philly is, I don't think they have the horses up front. I think they have some good young talent, but Montreal last year, like, they still had Suzuki and Caulfield, right? And those were their 2 horses. And, they were building on the back end, and they got Noah Dobson and whatever, right? But I don't know. Philly, to me, like, I still just don't really get it. Like, I know that Zegras has had a good year. I know Konechny's always good, and they have some other players down the lineup who chip in, and infusion of youth with Porter Martone. But I don't know. To me, like, I still just don't fully understand. I guess Vladar has had a really good year, and maybe next year it goes back to league average goaltending and they're 5 to 8 points fewer in the standings and they miss. But yeah, I don't know. So I just reject the comparison because I don't think the trajectory of the two teams is the same. And that's all I'm saying.
And that's what I wasn't getting to that at all. I just mean, like, because of course the Canadiens' trajectory and the pieces they have, I mean, it's miles ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers. I just mean, like, the way the Flyers did it with like such a late season hot run to get in is how I compare them to the Canadiens of last year. But in terms of talent, oh my gosh, like, it's not even close. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised you went there. I thought you had more faith in me, bud. But anyway,
no, I just wanted to clarify. That's all.
No, I understand. It's all good. And,
in fact, I was trying to protect you from Canadiens fans who would totally reject that comparison.
Oh God. I think
comparison.
I think you've done more harm than good here, Chad. Oh God.
But they were out in 5 games and we're taking Pittsburgh in 6. So
that is true. Let me ask you guys this. If all of our predictions go according to plan, because I think it was a clean sweep, right? If my memory serves in all of our predictions. So,
well, not in the games. Like,
no, but in the teams.
Yeah, but in the teams, yes.
So let me ask you this: if our predictions go to plan, that would mean Buffalo, Tampa Bay in the second round. Would that be the best series in the playoffs? Just given how aggressive and crazy Tampa Bay is and the amount of penalties they get, versus Rasmus Dahlin, who's been chomping at the bit to get in the playoffs and is a dirty player himself, but in all the best ways. Like, to me, that just sets up for such a fun series.
Oh, the last 2 games of the year between Buffalo and Tampa, that's all you have to look at. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, of course, but yes, that would be absolutely electric. And because of that 8-7 game in particular that we saw a little while ago. And I think a guy like Logan Stanley wouldn't mind getting a lick in on a guy like Brandon Hagel after what he did to Dahlin, and Buffalo couldn't play against him the last time they played. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I don't want to be filled with crazy hope here. Let's just focus on the first round here in that first game at KeyBank. Oh my God. It's going to be awesome. Can I say one thing about one more thing about the Flyers?
Sure.
Chad, and I feel like you were kind of going in this direction, and Case, I feel like you're going to be on board with this too, but we talk about how, again, this team has a lot of good pieces, but they don't have those, like, that game-breaking talent. And I can't help but wonder if the Flyers getting in here, potentially winning a round, is possibly the worst thing for them. And then they end up like the Seattle Kraken.
Oh. Yeah.
Is that a crazy thought?
Well, be a little harsh to call them the Seattle Kraken. I think Philly's got a pretty decent prospect pool of guys who are kind of right there that are, entering. Seattle has the better prospect pool overall, but a lot more projects there.
Right.
I'm a little confused about Philly. They don't have a 30 goal scorer on this team. Heading to the playoffs. 68 points is their top guy. And I kind of mentioned that it's just a well-structured defensive team. And if that's your only thing, then a team's going to solve you over 7 games. So I don't think that they're going to win this series. And it's always an interesting case of, should we be bad? Like, when do you make that switch to, okay, these guys need experience, they need playoff time? I think Montreal gracefully made that change last year, and maybe that's where this comparison comes back in. So there's a lot of guys who are right on the cusp with Philly. I don't think that this is going to be detrimental to them.
Yeah, because on the flip side too, say they do win this series or they put up a really good showing against Pittsburgh, goes to 7 games or something. after all, they did get 98 points this year, right? Like they're tied with Pitt in the 2-3 spot. What if it attracts some free agents, right? Like what if that's, if Philly becomes a desirable destination again because they're perceived as being good, right? Like that's the flip side to all of this. So who knows?
Yeah. And should also mention as well, like at some point he's had a tough year, but at some point we do expect Matvei Michkov to be that number one driver, that game-breaking talent every single night for this team for years to come. And he's just had a tough season. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Battle of Pennsylvania, boys. First time since 2018. How
That'll be
about
fun.
that? Yeah.
And Sid getting back into the playoffs, and this is his first series, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, huge. The NHL is in a better place when Sidney Crosby is playing playoff hockey, and the guy deserves it. He really does. So really happy to see Sid back in the postseason. And the other thing I was going to mention too is I kind of wish Claude Giroux was on the Flyers for this. Don't you guys?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the only other series that would have been better for Sid getting back into the playoffs first time in years. Capitals, obviously. Like
100%.
that would have been, and they weren't that far off too. Like
no, they were right there. Yeah. No, they were right there. So are the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yikes.
Oh boy, let's not talk about that.
No, I know. Junk, I'm sorry, man. I love you. All right, guys, anything else before we wrap up the East here?
Nope.
Okay. All right, that's the East. First round predictions. I'm so excited, guys. So this will be out Thursday. We will do the West round 1 predictions. That'll be out on Friday. Thank you so much for listening to episode 277 of the Boys in the Booth podcast, a proud partner of iPlay Hockey. Take care. Talk to you on Friday.